Let's talk about the finals. Why not? Let's get that out of the way. Let's another elephant in the room. Let's just skip game 1 and game 2. Okay, let's talk about game 3. Let's talk about game 3. Sometimes you just get blown out, you know. Now, this game sparked an entire debate about like Eradicator Epidemic virus, which I understand that people were mad after this final and being like, yeah, that shouldn't be a thing. And I understand that. I agree with that. However, I will say one thing. Eradicator Epidemic virus, and this might sound stupid, but I genuinely believe that Eradicator Epidemic virus on the list of cards that deserve a hit is relatively low down on that list. There's a lot of other cards that I would hit before hitting Eradicator Epidemic virus. The card is very strong and sometimes it feels very, very degenerate, but only... The thing is, you have to think about Eradicator Epidemic virus in a way where the card has a lot of ifs attached. Like, the card is only good if your opponent plays a very spell-heavy deck, which a lot of decks these days are, but in the case of Kashtira, for example, the deck has unreasonably powerful spell cards, right? So, like, the deck just plays an incredible amount of high-power spell cards. So, like, and still, you can still beat Eradicator if you don't have a hand like that. Like, that hand, it was just completely unfortunate. The other thing is that Eradicator requires setup. It does require setup, and I feel like a lot of people have been hating on cards like Lady Labyrinth or Lovely. I don't know which one it is. I think it's Lady Labyrinth, the one that sets it from the deck. That combo, quote unquote, is way harder to pull off than you think it is. That is not easy to do. Like, it is so much... Like, this was only ridiculous because the Eradicator was hard drawn here. The hard drawn Eradicator was what really knocked out Tom, because, like, there was no world in which Dinka was going to be able to set it up with Lady Labyrinth there, because you can chain block Lady Labyrinth and everything, and you can't even activate it immediately if you set it. It's like you need to be playing... It's a 3-card combo in the Furniture Labyrinth build, right? So you need to be playing the Furniture Labyrinth build for that combo to even work. It's a 3-card combo, and honestly, I don't think that if you resolve a 3-card combo in these days Yu-Gi-Oh, that it's outrageous that you're like winning the game. On top of all that, Eradicator Epidemic virus is pretty much exclusively good going first, and requires you to play very specific decks for it. It's not like every deck can just spam Eradicator like they can with Anti-Spell, like they can with Dimensional Barrier. I think, genuinely, Eradicator is not my biggest concern with Yu-Gi-Oh! At all. Only because this happened doesn't mean... Only because a card won the game here doesn't mean that it should immediately be banned. And, like, you know... The thing is, I have evolved in my way of thinking about cards like this because I've just come to terms with them, basically. I've come to terms with cards that blow out certain strategies, because I believe that if you seriously want to ban Eradicator, you have to ban a lot of other cards first, and I just don't think that's realistic. I don't think it's gonna happen. I've come to terms with the fact that they're probably never gonna ban Gozen, Tikaboo, Anti-Spell, Skill Drain, Rivalry, D-Barrier, all those cards, and literally all the cards I just mentioned, I think are more toxic than Eradicator. And while would I personally ban those cards? Yes, I would. I don't think those cards are very fun. I would ban those cards, but I don't think they will. I think it's a much healthier mindset to just accept the fact that Their cards exist that beat certain strategies. And sometimes if you're playing a strategy that loses to a specific card, you're going to lose to that card. It's a card game at the end of the day. Luck is involved. If your opponent, goes first in game 3, opens an Eradicator against your 5-spell hand, you're going to lose. I think it's healthier to accept the fact that it's part of the game. And kind of like an it is what it is situation. Instead of like every time this happens, you just start complaining about it again and again and again. I don't know. I think it's fine. It's like you see something happening, like someone loses to anti-spell on that one stream and everyone's like, yo, let's hate on anti-spell. And like then the next stream it's Deep Barrier, the next stream is Eradicator. It doesn't end anywhere, right? It has no end. And while I understand the critique to Eradicator Epidemic Virus, I think it's kind of pointless, the discussion that we have. But yeah. Davidson, thank you for the Prime. Appreciate you. And Subtroop, thank you for the 11. The final was a perfect example of Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't think that's the case, right? I think what you also have to understand is that these types of games are not that common. I had at this tournament, literally out of 13 rounds I played, the literal only games that felt like I could not play the game was the 2 games against Rika, because of full combo plus Droll and Lockbird. That was the only games the entire tournament where I felt like I couldn't play the game. It's not that common in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! I think a lot of people like to think that they lost because of a certain card, but in the reality, it very often also is that you played into that card, or you could have played around it, or yada yada. Like literally, I've beaten cards like Shifter and Droll and Lockbird. I got Shifter 2 or 3 times. I beat it every time because of Mannequin Cat. I got Droll and Lockbirded on my turn 1 like 3 or 4 times. I beat it every time because of Mannequin Cat. There is ways to beat these cards sometimes there's not. But the thing is, another perspective to look at it. Sometimes a game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not winnable from the beginning, even if no cards like this are involved, right? Even if no blowout cards like Eradicator or Dark Ruler or Evenly are involved, sometimes you're just not meant to win a game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because your opponent just has all the right answers to your cards, and just you were never winning that game. They have the exact right hand, 2 hand traps plus their combo starters and whatnot. It's like at some point we just gotta say goodbye to the idea of wanting to be able to win every single game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Every single game I want to take part in the game. I want to be able to play back and forth shit, and like that. It's never going to be the case that you're always going to have that, right? You're never going to have a format where every single game feels like a back and forth game where both players are in it to win it. Sometimes you just can't win in a card game because sometimes your opponent just has a hand that beats your hand. Sometimes that hand involves a card like Eradicator, but sometimes it can be as simple as they draw 2 hand traps that negate what you are trying to do. Are you always going to go ahead after every single loss that like you couldn't win from the get-go? You're going to be like, hey, they should ban this card, they should ban that card. I think at some point we just need to accept that this stuff exists in this game, and like people are overall still enjoying the game. Like I mean, you losing a game to this stuff sucks, but you can't let that ruin your entire tournament experience because you lose top 16 to whatever unbreakable board your opponent made. And then completely disregard all the good games you had up until that point, So overall, I think it's fair to complain about those cards. I understand it. In this particular case, I think it's not as big of a deal because literally Eradicator is currently once they banned Curious, I felt like Eradicator was completely fine. I didn't have an issue with Eradicator in a long time, because they are a lot more situational than a lot of other floodgates in the game. A lot of other floodgates are way more powerful, less situational than Eradicator Epidemic Virus. Only because Dinka got lucky enough to hard draw it here against the hand of 5 spells doesn't mean, like literally if Tom had Ash, well, there was a strike for Ash, but let's pretend the strike wasn't there. If there was an Ash on the big welcome, this could have gone completely different. Tom could have also had a hand of like Unicorn, Fenrir, Rysard, whatever. It's like only because it happened exactly like that doesn't mean we need to go on a witch hunt on Eradicator Epidemic Virus. That's just my few words on that. I think people are making it a bigger deal than it was.